Sir, what are you saying to your supporters? There have been all this flurry today. Can you say to you?
Some of what we said is just untrue. We sent out a statement.
What's your time frame?
Stop with this. I'm dealing with a global crisis. You know, we're dealing with it, and you're asking me these questions, right?
You're running for president, so...
Well, right now, right now, I'm trying to do my best to make sure that we don't have an economic meltdown and that people don't die. Is that enough for you to keep me busy for tonight?
So earlier tonight, Bernie Sanders was taking questions from the media, and they wanted to make it all about the Democratic primary, even as we're all facing a national and global health crisis. And Bernie Sanders was having none of it. The journalists, all they wanted to talk about was Joe Biden's big win. Wasn't Joe Biden's win so big? Isn't this so important? Bernie, when are you going to drop out? Why haven't you dropped out yet? Will you drop out today, tomorrow, the next day? Bernie, when are you going to drop out? And Bernie Sanders basically told them to F off, and he was 100% right to do so. I want to read you a couple tweets which really capture the scenario perfectly from my perspective, at least. Senator Bernie Sanders grew angry when asked about his campaign plans. During a gaggle with reporters in the Capitol, I asked Sanders about his time frame for making a decision, and he lashed out, "I'm dealing with a fucking global crisis. You know, we're dealing with." I noted he's running for president, and he said, well, right now, I'm trying to do my best to make sure that we don't have an economic meltdown and that people don't die. Is that enough for you to keep me busy for today? Bernie is 100% on point. Not only did he shut down this pointless line of questioning, he centered why we all love Bernie Sanders. Bernie isn't a profane man. In fact, I can't think of the last time I heard Bernie Sanders swear or even heard of him swearing. But Bernie Sanders never minces words when it comes to standing up and standing with working class people and the struggles they face. And the struggle they're facing right now is undeniably a serious one. And Bernie wants people to know that next to that, his presidential campaign is second fiddle if it means anything at all. And so today for Bernie Sanders, it wasn't about his run for president, my run for president, the hopes that I become president. It was about how he could do his part to serve the American people today in his capacity as a senator and in his capacity as a national leader of a broad and deep and diverse progressive movement. It's not about him, it's about all of us, Americans and people all over the world, who Bernie Sanders represents and who we count on to stand up for our ideals and our interests in this moment. And I was very proud to hear Bernie Sanders say that, because there's going to be lots of time to talk about the primary. There's going to be lots of instances to talk about the delegate math. There's going to be lots of instances to talk about whether or not Joe Biden's lead is insurmountable or not. But in this moment, Bernie is doing something far more important. He's leading a movement. He's not a follower like Joe Biden, who's basically taking no real substantive positions, not trying to build his movement towards finding a solution that he will enact as president and that he will fight for every day until he becomes president. He's just being quiet because we all know every moment Joe is in front of the camera is another moment the American populace sees his cognitive decline. Bernie Sanders is demonstrating in the short, medium, and long term how his policies, how his philosophy, and how his vision is the way to help American people in getting the help they need and in building an equitable society which will be better poised to weather these crises in the future. That's what matters here. Bernie Sanders, of course, is talking about Medicare for all. He's, of course, talking about putting more money in the hands of working class people. He's, of course, talking about how the rich and wealthy and well-connected need to shoulder the burden of any sort of stimulus package when the bill comes in. That's certainly what Bernie Sanders is there to talk about. But Bernie Sanders is also here in this moment to let people know that he cares about them, that he's listening to them, that he's hearing them, that he is watching over them, that Bernie Sanders has compassion. This isn't just the ideological project for Bernie. This is day-to-day real stuff, saving real lives in the best way he can. Bernie Sanders is proposing an immediate $2,000 payout. He's proposing freezing student loan payments. Good, practical policy that will benefit regular people. They might not all agree with Bernie all the time, but these are the policies in emergencies that broad swaths of the American public need and deserve and want. And Bernie is a leader in fighting for those things. This isn't about the presidential election, at least not in total. This is about what American leaders, people who are congressmen and senators, presidents, and all sorts of other folks with power, what they can do to make lives better and easier for those who are the most vulnerable right now, those who cannot work, those who are laid off, those who have to take full childcare responsibilities because daycares and schools are closed. That's who Bernie is fighting for. So the media asking questions like this and then getting sort of offended, as I saw on social media, when Bernie gives them a real response, are demonstrating how they are out of touch with the urgency of this crisis and with the urgency of the American people's daily experience right now. Bernie Sanders gets it. And that's why on Twitter tonight, there was a hashtag Dear Bernie. And some of the Dear Bernies were like, Dear Bernie, you lost, you need to drop out. But the vast majority were Dear Bernies about how he changed people's lives, about how whether he wins or loses this primary, whether he does or doesn't get to be president, he has built a better country and world, and he will never be forgotten for that. And I think that in this moment, we need to thank Bernie Sanders again for being there for us, for standing up to the narrow and vapid media, who on the one hand will praise Joe Biden as strong and principled when he threatens to slap a worker, but will call Bernie Sanders rash and angry when he dares to express a fundamental desire to stand with people when they need him the most.